know, I was going to talk about Eat, Pray, Love, but movie stars are kind of boring, and I don't really want to sit up here and name drop. I did get to work on Eat, Pray, Love. It was a pretty incredible experience. I've grown up all over the world, so the painting teacher from that movie, the shaman from that movie was my painting teacher actually growing up. So that is a whole other story that I could tell you about, but I want to tell you a really cool adventure story from my childhood, because that's kind of what I'm all about, and inspiring kids based upon what I went through as a kid. So basically, this is an end of summer story, and I had two dreams when I was about 7 years old. One was to go to school, like a real school. I was fascinated. I wanted homework, and I wanted to get on a big yellow school bus, and I wanted to have a teacher in like one of those little lunch boxes that you could open that has like Aladdin on the front. And my parents decided instead to raise me as like this crazy Tarzan child, eating strange iguana things on a regular basis. And so I wanted to go to school, and I wanted to find the skull of the abominable snowman. So that was kind of my two dreams at that point. And my parents decided that they were going to take off to the Himalayas to go on a photo expedition. My dad was a photographer for National Geographic and Patagonia and Eagle Creek and North Face and all crazy outdoor adventure companies. So basically, I was along for the ride. I didn't have much of a choice. And it seems glamorous, but at that time, like the only real society I got was Disney films on airplanes. So I'd always watch them and be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna find Aladdin one day. But anyway, so we went to the Himalayas, and we're trekking up to get to Mount Everest. And I'm 7, mind you, okay? And we're walking along, and the whole trail, I'm just like, excuse me, have you seen the abominable snowman? Excuse me, like every trekker that passes by. They're just like, who is this chick? And but I was determined. And at first I'd ask them if they'd be my friend, because I didn't have any friends. I just didn't go to school. I didn't. My parents, and I'm stuck in this like 6 foot by 6 foot tent with them everywhere. My dad was like always flossing, and my mom's a yoga teacher. She'd be every morning at like 5 a.m. and it was so and then I wake up with like a foot in my face because she'd be doing Supta Pada Mukha Mukha Dasasana. So we get finally to Namche Bazaar. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. It's kind of the village of the Himalayas near Everest. That people have heard about when they do the Everest expeditions and all that. Okay, so mind you, it was during the time that they were shooting the Mount Everest film. This was a long time ago. Oh, God, I'm getting old. Okay, so they were shooting the IMAX Everest film. We're up there. We get to the tea house, and it is like gnarly winter hits because we're there. It's the end of summer. Craziest snowstorm I've ever seen. Everybody gets snowed in. And I'm like, oh, great. So we get snowed into this tea house there. And normally when you get to a tea house, you sign up and you get a room and you pay a little bit and you get to stay in there. But no. My dad was way too adventurous for that. We couldn't possibly be in the posh tea house, which is like a yak skin blanket on a hardwood floor. No, we had to stay outside in our tent. So I'm like, out there eating Cliff Bars that are like 20 days old. And I see this little girl walk by, little Sherpa girl, and I'm like, kid alert. Like that movie where it's like squirrel? Like, that's how I was. I was always like, kids. And she apparently had come from the tea house, so I kept like kind of monitoring the kid alert. And every morning, I would like unzip the tent, and I'd hear crunch, 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 crunch. And she'd be at like 4 a.m, be walking up the hill by my tent with this massive water jug on her back. Like those big stock tanks, and they have the handles on them, and you can fill them up, or they put gas in them and stuff. So she'd be walking by, and she'd have ropes like tied all around her feet and her legs. And she's about my age, if not younger, like really cute little, oh my gosh, adorable little girl. If I hadn't been 7, I would have been like, oh, you're so cute. But she just looked like a classmate or a friend to me. So I watched and tracked it, and no matter rain or shine, she would always be out there doing this at like 4 a.m. So one morning, I got really sneaky, and I grabbed my parents' headlamp, and I took a stale Cliff Bar, and I put like every piece of clothing I could possibly put on, and I snuck into the tea house. And I walked around, and there was like the last embers from the yak dung fire kind of like dancing on the wall into these like long wooden hallways. And so I like creeped around in there until I saw her, and she was preparing. And I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. So she sets off out through the door, and I just like follow her, and she kind of like notices me and looks back and just keeps going, and I'm like, wait, I want to go, and then I realize there's a problem that we don't speak the same language, and so she starts walking up the mountain, and I go up, I'm like, can I come with you? Mind you, it is 4 a.m., like it's totally dark, and it's freezing. It's like 40 below zero. And so she kind of like just kept ignoring me, and I kept following her, and the snow is like up to here. And finally she's like, oh, okay. She hands me these ropes, and I'm like, what do I do with these ropes? So she starts tying them around my legs, and I'm like, all right, let's go. So we start up this massive mountain in front of us in the moonlight, and at the very edge of the village, like right when we're starting to go up this huge pass, there's all these other kids, and they have water jugs on their backs too. And I'm like, this is interesting. There's some sort of posse going on here. It's like a lot of cool kids. And the other kids actually had twigs. So some had water jugs, and some had twigs on their back. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. So we go trekking up this pass, and found out later it's like a 17,500 foot pass. So we get up there, it's still dark, and about every, 10, 20 minutes, they'd stop, take the twigs off their back, and make a fire so we could stay warm, because it was freezing. So we get to the top of the pass, the sun rises over like Everest and Amadablom and all the amazing panorama of the Himalayas in the distance, and they take the water jugs off their back, and they split in half. Like, they had already split in half, but you couldn't tell because they were roped together. And so Rita, which her name was Rita, she handed me half of the water jug. And I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? And she sits in the other half because it's hollow, and she just like takes off down the other side of the mountain. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And all the other kids followed her. So I'm like, yes. So I get in the thing, and we just go flying. And we're like top speed tobogganing down the most gnarly mountain you've ever seen. And I'm surprised I didn't die. And I probably should have told my parents where I was going. But they're the type of parents that are like, climb Mount Everest. Don't cross the street in Los Angeles, but let's go climb Mount Everest. So we like Disneyland. Oh, that's a scary place. So we get to the bottom, and I'm like, oh God, where are we? Maybe I shouldn't be here. What am I doing? And there's this like ancient hut type of building that you'd find up there at the base of Everest, and you just see it all behind you, and it's this mysterious hut, and they all head for it, and I'm like, oh God, maybe this wasn't the best idea. Like, they're obviously not filling up water. What are they doing? And so they all stack their water jug sleds on the hut, and she grabs my hand, and at this point I'm like, oh my God, I have a friend. And we go inside, and lo and behold, we come around the corner, and there's just lines and lines of little desks and a teacher with like a chalkboard, and my jaw just dropped open, and I'm like, oh my gosh, a friend and school in one day? This is the coolest thing ever. So that is how they got to school. And so I went to school for my first time ever at the base of Mount Everest. It was pretty crazy. They thought it was the coolest thing, because I'm this little, like, I had blonde little pigtails, and so they didn't know what to think of me, but they put on the sash, and they got so embarrassed when they were doing the English lesson, because, they can only teach as much as they know, so they're afraid they're going to be wrong in front of me. It was so cute, so I started helping when I'm 7. So anyway, we get out of school, and I'm like, well, that's great. I have a friend, and I went to school, but I still haven't found the skull of the abominable snowman. Well, the whole time going to school, I had been very animatedly telling Rita as we walked about it. And I was pretty sure she didn't have a clue what I was talking about, but I didn't care, so I kept telling her. So we get out of school, and she has this kind of mysterious look on her face. And we start heading back towards the pass, and there's this other kind of ancient-looking monastery on our way. And she walks up to the big doors, and she kind of peeks around, and all the other kids kept going, and she's like, come here, come here, come here. So she goes in. I swear it was like something out of the Goonies. It was so crazy. She opens this like musty door, and this light ray shines in, and it hits this solitary monk that's just sitting there. I couldn't tell if it was like a man or a woman, like the most beautiful, serene monk you've ever seen. Just like, So we walk up to it, and she goes, taps the monk. And they had this kind of like nonverbal communication, and she nodded and went into this like musty, it was something like out of Pirates of the Caribbean. It was so wild. They go to this like musty chest, and the monk opens the chest and brings out this glass like locked box, and inside of it is the skull of the abominable snowman. And I was like, what? No, because it's rumored to be up there in this monastery. Nobody's ever seen it. So after that, it actually became an issue of National Geographic. I don't know if you guys remember, they like discovered the Yeti's skull. But I didn't know at that point how lucky I was, actually. So that was so cool. So we came like charging back to the tea house. My parents were like, WTF. And I'm like, I found the skull and I got to go to school. And I was just on a roll. And when they found out I snuck out to go to school, I didn't get in too much trouble. But so we stayed with Rita and we got to work around the tea house. And anyway, to wrap it up, the crazy part of it all is that I thought I would never really succeed in life because I never went to school. And I always wanted to go to college and I wanted to have friends and I wanted to have that real life. And so when it came time for college, I was like, how am I going to get in? And my parents said, well, why don't you write about Rita? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Ooh, I get like choked up when I think about it. So I wrote a story about Rita and about going to school with her. And yeah, I got into every college I applied to. And I went to actually to UC Berkeley at first, and then I went over to USC Film School because I wanted to make films to be able to share the adventures that I'd had as a kid with people out there to inspire them. And so guess what I made a film about? I made a film about Rita and going to school with her. And right out of college, it won Telluride Film Festival. It was up for an MTV Movie Award. It got into her village on MTV with the only TV they had. She found me on Facebook somehow. And we've reconnected, and she has a baby and a husband and a whole life up there. And it's just been this like magical sequence of events that has landed me here tonight talking to you about something I'm going to shamelessly plug because I'm so excited about it. Since then, for 8 years, I've been filming my film series, Alison's Adventures. Rita was my very first one. Now they're full-length films, and I'm about to start off on a worldwide school tour to bring all these films to everyone and inspire the kids. And I'm doing a big campaign right now. So if you find me on social media, Alison's Adventures, you'll see it. It's basically like a Kickstarter to raise money to go on that school tour. So I don't have to just go to the schools that pay or just go, when people can cover things. If you want more info, I can give it to you. But anyway, it's pretty exciting. Now I'm a surfer, which is weird. My parents are like, we raised you in the Himalayas and now you surf? What the heck? Where did we go wrong? Anyway, yeah. That's pretty much my story. And this lovely man right here, I just have to say thank you so much because I'm going to let you in on a little piece of wild information. If you'd like to see me naked, next week you will have the chance to do so on the biggest national television show in the world right now. I'm going to be on Discovery Channel's Naked and Afraid. I don't know if any of you guys saw it premiere the last Sunday. You're probably wondering what the heck I'm talking about now. They threw 2 survivalists into the wilderness with nothing to go primitive for a month and have to survive. And I did it, which was really weird. It's not what you're thinking when you watch the show. You'll be like, okay, I get it. It was a primitive culture thing, and this lovely man right here made me my machete. So that was pretty exciting. Thank you so much. It was awesome.